And so we are in a state of emergency.
Okay, white supremacist violence is and always has been the number one threat to our society.
But I'm also very proud that my wife is white.
The Breakfast Club, bitches.
All right, Charlamagne, please tell me, why was I your donkey of the day?
Well, donkey of the day for Wednesday, March 12th goes to Representative Keith Self of Texas. Now, I am fully aware that I am not mature enough to have certain conversations because my default setting is laughter. Okay, I am a very unserious person because we live in the United States of anxiety, and I've been dealing with anxiety and panic attacks my whole life. And if it's one thing therapy has taught me, it's we must always find joy. And I find joy in jokes. Okay, in this situation with Representative Keith Self gave me great joy. I laughed a lot because Keith Self decided to abruptly adjourn a congressional hearing on Tuesday after being challenged for referring to Representative Sarah McBride of Delaware as a man. Now, maybe you don't know, don't show, or don't give a damn that Sarah McBride is the first openly transgender lawmaker in Congress. Okay, that is a fact. In the Europe subcommittee of the House of Foreign Affairs panel, by the way, I have no idea what that is, but it sounds fancy. That panel was in the middle of a hearing on arms control and U.S. assistance to Europe when its chairman, Representative Keith Self of Texas, introduced his colleague by calling Sarah McBride Mr. Let's go to 6 ABC News for the report, please.
The congressional hearing came to an abrupt end yesterday after a Republican colleague misgendered newly elected Delaware Representative Sarah McBride.
I now recognize the representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ranking Member.
As you just heard, Texas Republican Keith Self, the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, addressed McBride as Mr. McBride hit back by responding, "Thank you, Madam Chair." McBride made history last year by becoming the first openly transgender person elected to Congress. After the exchange, Massachusetts Representative William Keating defended his Democratic colleague.
Mr. Chairman, you are out of order. Mr. Chairman, have you no decency? I mean, I've come to know you a little bit, but this is not decent.
We will continue this.
You will not continue it with me unless you introduce a duly elected representative the right way.
Self then immediately adjourned the meeting. McBride says she was disappointed and was prepared to move forward with questions for the subcommittee.
Now, let the record show, I believe Representative William Keating of Massachusetts was trying to be funny. Okay, he wanted Keith Self to repeat himself for the same reason I wanted Keith Self to say it again, for my own personal enjoyment. And you heard Keith Self, he doubled down. And can we hear it again one more time, right? Can we hear it? I want to hear it in full. Let me hear it in full.
Recognize the representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ranking Member Keating, also wonderful.
Mr. Chairman, could you repeat your introduction again, please?
Yes, we have set the standard on the floor of the House, and I'm simply...
What is that standard, Mr. Chairman? Would you repeat what you just said when you introduced a duly elected representative from the United States of America? Please.
I will. The representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
You couldn't
Mr. Chairman, you are out of order. Mr. Chairman, have you no decency? I've come to know you a little bit, but this is not decent.
We will continue this.
You will not continue it with me unless you introduce a duly elected representative the right way.
I have to play white devil's advocate here because I understand where Mr. Self is coming from, because I too have been wondering what to do in this situation, because as Keith Self explained on social media, and I'm quoting him here, it is the policy of the United States to recognize two sexes, male and female. Why? Because one of President Trump's early moves of his second term was to sign an executive order that the federal government would only recognize two sexes and they were not changeable. Okay, an executive order was signed. It's right there in black and white. I don't know what to do in this situation. It's all so confusing. So, William Keating, you getting frustrated with Mr. Self when all he's doing is what your boss told him to do. Did a memo go out telling members of Congress what to do in this situation after Trump signed that executive order? Of course it didn't. So I'm not really upset at Keith Self for doing what the president told him to do. What I am upset about, and the reason I'm giving Keith Self donkey of the day, is because he adjourned the session. See, these petty culture wars are hurting democracy. You heard me say earlier that they were in the middle of a hearing on arms control and U.S. assistance to Europe. I kind of know what that is. I believe I know what that means, but I know one thing for sure. That panel is more important than whether or not Sarah McBride is referred to as Mr. or Miss. And you know who knows that better than anyone? Sarah McBride. See, on other occasions, Republicans presiding over the floor and in hearings have either tried to stay away from the issue by referring to Sarah as the member from Delaware, even though the custom is to refer to lawmakers as gentlemen or gentlewomen. I actually like them just referring to her as the member from Delaware, even though I don't know if Sarah has had their member surgically removed. But Sarah rarely discusses or calls attention to her identity. Okay, this is how she conducted herself on her campaign and in her first months of Congress. She prefers to talk about economic issues, and that's what I want all you elected officials to do. Focus on the actual issues that impact our world. Okay, Keith Self, there's no reason to adjourn a meeting because you was challenged on calling Sarah a him. When William Keating says you out of order, say, well, hey, the president signed an executive order, and that's what I'm following. But to take your ball and run home because your ego got bruised? Come on, man. Grow up. You a member of Congress. We got bigger issues to deal with. You can't just take your balls and go home, and neither can Sarah McBride. Ironically, she's the only person in this situation with balls. So you're right, Keith. But you're also wrong. Please give Representative Keith Self the biggest hee-haw. It's just bigger issues to deal with, guys. And girls. And girl guys.
It's crazy. Well, thank you for that.
It's just big issues to deal with. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you for that donkey today.
Yes.
Donkey of the Day is sponsored by renowned personal injury attorney Michael the Bull Lamonsoff. Don't be a donkey when you need a fighter on your side. If you're ever injured, go to michaelthebull.com. That's michaelthebull.com. And when you mess with the bull, you get the horns.
Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.